good evening, and welcome to yet another lockdown. Oh, what happened there? So it looks like they're playing up already. Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. And to say, we've got a bit of a surprise tonight. We've got a little bit of a special guest on the open mic hour. And I'm going to introduce Gerard, and I'm going to bring him in, and he can tell me a little bit more about himself. And good evening, young man. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the UK.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, and wonderful. And how's things over there? And how's your week been? How's the year going? Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. My name is Jared Black. I am currently living in Louisiana, in the United States. I am 29 years old, and I currently am a practitioner of hoodoo and rootwork. Uh, right now, I'm enjoying the weather. We have a little bit of warm weather on our end, so I'm just enjoying the days as they go by right now, and just living and loving life.
Excellent. And again, thank you for being part of this evening's show and all that as well. When people come on, they'll ask certain questions, and we'll just go through it, and the hour will go. Um, a few things as well. What got you into what you're doing? Do you want to explain a little bit more about experiences, where it started for you?
Not a problem. It originally started for me when I was at a very, very young age. My mother's side of the family grew up in New Iberia, Louisiana, which is basically swamplands in the Louisiana area. My mom ended up migrating to the Houston, Texas area when she was younger, along with her family. And when she moved, a lot of our customs and traditions moved with her. As she grew older, she decided that those traditions that she grew up with weren't for her, so she kind of turned her back on them. When I came along, I'm the only child, and in our family, it's basically a matriarchal family. So all in all, it just passed down from grandmothers, great grandmothers, great great grandmothers, aunts, so on and so forth. So as I was growing up, I was extremely close to my great grandmother, who was teaching me things, but at that point in time, I didn't know. So as I got older, I started to realize, oh, okay, this is what she's teaching me, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. Uh, when I noticed, whenever it came to my spirituality when I was younger, uh, again, like I said, my mother had turned her back on her traditional belief system and she turned to Christianity. But as a Christian, she wasn't able to explain to me certain things that I would see or that I would experience. But whenever I would turn to my grandmother or my great grandmother, they'd be like, "Oh, Jared, this is this. Oh, this is this, so on and so forth." Blah 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 blah. So the older I got, it just made more sense to me to follow in a traditional path versus a path that was, you know, that my mother decided to go on, that my father decided to go
It's certainly interesting as you develop and you're around family, and it's like sometimes you feel like when you're younger, you don't want to ask certain questions of what you're experiencing as well. It's like we sit back, don't we, as we're learning on the spiritual path, and then all of a sudden, I think the whole spiritual side of it just explodes, and you receive more information and stuff like that. What would you say, like, what really opened yourself up at a certain age? Was there a specific time that you really opened up spiritually?
on. What really opened me up spiritually, and it's a funny story. As I was growing older and I hit maturity and I started to develop as a young man, I noticed that the way that people painted the world in black and white was not how the world truly was. Um, the what I was taught in the church was not equaling up to what I saw outside. So when I began to question things, such as why do I hear certain voices when there's nobody around, or why do I see certain shadows when there's nobody else in the room, or why do I have these certain sensations when nobody else is there? My parents were quick to say, "Oh, that's demons. Pray about it. This is that. Pray about it. This is this. Pray about it. Don't worry about it." And they would try to turn a blind eye to it. Me being the inquisitive person that I am, I don't just ignore it as an answer. If I want information or I want answers to something, I'm going to go searching for those answers. So what ended up happening was I started talking to family members, especially the older family members. And the more that I talked to them, they're like, "Oh, Jared, you have gifts, or you have the keening, or you have the sight, or you have this, or you have that. This is why you're seeing this. This is why you're experiencing that, so on and so forth." And it started to get to a point I entered a rebellious phase. And whenever I entered that rebellious phase, I got, I'll put it bluntly, I went into a depression because I was being taught what was right and wrong, quote unquote, versus what was actually right and wrong. What I was actually seeing versus what I was told to see and what I was told not to see. And it did play a major part on my psyche at one point in time. And eventually it was I had to leave. And eventually I did end up leaving because my parents ended up kicking me out, my spiritual beliefs, but because of my uh choice and who I decided to love, basically. And that was another reason why, me and my parents butt heads a lot because again, they're hardcore Christians and you got to do this the way, this way, this way, and this way. And I was just like, you know what, I can't. I have to live truthfully. And so that's what I ended up doing.
So realistically, you're following your path, aren't you, with your beliefs and what you're experiencing as well, which takes a lot to do and takes a lot to go on that road. What, was you alone? Could you turn to certain people at the time when that was happening?
When I first started on the journey, on my spiritual journey, I was alone. It was a very, very hard journey to start off with. But as time went on, I started to meet like-minded people and even people who did not uh, believe the same thing that I believed in or value the same thing that I valued in. And as I went on that journey, the more people that I've met that, they might have been like, "Oh, well, I don't particularly believe in this," or, "Oh, I don't particularly see this and this light." It was still a teaching experience and it was still a spiritual experience for me. Anybody that I work with, I let them know that, you know, things will happen that you don't want to happen. You will experience things that you do not want to experience. However, even though those things happen to you, those are still teaching lessons for you to go through and for you to glean some type of understanding from. And I always tell them that because I've experienced that firsthand. Because if the things that I have not would have went through, the things that I experienced, and the things that I did not experience would not make me the person that I am today.
And certainly, as again, I've got a few notes written down here. Do you want to explain to a few of the lovely people that are tuning in tonight what like a root worker is, and explain a little bit more to that, because I'd be quite inquisitive to know. Certain parts of the country do and work with different things in their tool locker, and there's different tools in your locker to what I've got in my spiritual tool locker as well. Do you want to explain a little bit around the root worker, what that is over there in
Sure.
Louisiana?
Okay, not a problem. Basically, what root working boils down to is in the beginning, whenever these slaves came over from Africa to North America, they weren't equipped to handle life, a brand new life, basically. So what they began to do is to interact with the Native Americans and learn the Native American ways. And while they were learning Native American ways, how to uh, protect themselves, how to prosper off the land, what herbs to eat, what herbs not to eat, what animals to hunt, what animals not to hunt, which plants and animals are of spiritual significance. Those slaves took that and mixed it, not even mixed it, incorporated it with their own spirituality. As time went on, you had slaves that became medicine men and women. You've also had slaves that became doulas and doctors and so on and so forth, the medicine man. Basically, a root worker is a medicine man who uses herbs and animals to heal a human being mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So
And
that's
I can
the basis.
That's
Oh, go
fantastic.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's fine. I'm sorry to stop it in full throw. Didn't mean that. Then I can. So realistically, when your folks have gone over there from like day one, you've had to learn from afresh, haven't you? And on the path as well. And do you work with any spiritual animals within your team, or do you work with guides? Do you work with do you have, is there anybody within your team spiritually?
I do have a spiritual team. One of my main go-tos is my great grandmother. She is a character to say the least. She does not bite her tongue. She does not care what comes out of her mouth. She spits, and when she spits, you either take it with a grain of salt or you ignore it altogether. Uh, I also have a few other family members that are on my spiritual team that I hold dear to my heart. Um, one of my I'm glad you mentioned spiritual spirit animals, because one of my spirit animals that's close to me is the spider. And most people, whenever they're like, oh, it's a spider, I'm like, nope, don't kill it, don't touch it, leave it alone. It's here for a message. Just leave that baby be. But yeah, I do have a really strong spiritual team. I really do have uh a really, really powerful lineup that I'm thankful that I can work with and that continues to guide me day to day. Because if they wouldn't, I don't know what I would be doing right about now.
And I know from your perspective there, where you're saying about the spider and all that, it's like my perspective of life did change when I became a Reiki practitioner about 12 years ago. And I couldn't step on a spider. Now I can't step on an ant. So again, your perspective spiritually, your whole world changes around this energy of everything, and everything's got that right to live as well. And it's just amazing what you learn and how your perspective changes over your path of time as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. Because the more I started to go down my path, uh, a lot, something that hit me really, really hard and hit me like a bag of bricks was I had to learn self-love all over again. Because as I was growing up, self-love was not important. You always took care of somebody else, or you always did what made other people happy. But with my journey, I was like, you know what? In order for me to blossom, I have to put back into myself. So I started with my journey and started putting more energy back into myself, loving myself more, loving those around me more. And it physically shows and it physically manifests in my world around me when you have a respect and a love for yourself. And when you do that and put that above everyone else, it hits so hard and you benefit so well from it.
Oh, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent theory as well with explaining that. Claire's just come up with that you've touched on around the spiritual team. Claire's asking, how does that benefit you with the way that you work as well? How do you find your spiritual team animals work with you and benefit you?
Well, whenever it comes to my personal spiritual team, they've always been here with me. They've been here with me from day one. And this is a belief that goes into root working and into the hoodoo aspect. Whenever it goes into root working and hoodoo, a lot of people misconstrue things as being ancestor worship. It's not an ancestor worship, it's an ancestor reverence. It's basically giving the respect and the time and the energy to those who came before you because of them, you are now here. So my whole bloodline is my whole spiritual team. Some of them, they are very, very blunt. Some of them, they like to sit back in the shadows. Some of them are warriors that love to step up to the forefront and are ready to make some stuff pop off if somebody speaks disrespectfully to me. However, it's one of those things of because of what they did and because of who I am, I have the ability to work with any and all of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, I've learned stuff tonight just by having yourself on, even explaining like the root worker as well. So people on here, we're learning different things, and this is what it's about: of the understanding of how other people work around the globe and around the world as well, and their trends and their traits and what their experience as well, which is fantastic. And you've been really fantastic explaining that root worker. Can you explain a little bit more about the hoodoo? practitioner. Can you explain a little bit more to that to the viewers?
Whenever it comes down to hoodoo, that is more on the spiritual aspect of it. Now, you hear a lot of people out here saying, "Oh, I am mama this or I am papa this of hoodoo, so on and so forth." I will never refer to myself as that because whenever it comes to those titles, whenever it comes to this realm of spirituality, a lot of people think they can just jump into it and they give themselves names and titles and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. However, hoodoo is basically caring for the spirit of your community, looking out for the spirit of your community, looking out for the spirit of yourself, looking out for the spirit of your neighbors, your uncles, your aunts, your friends, your family members. It's a big community thing. And the closer that a community forms together, the more of that hoodoo spirit that they can tap into. For example, uh, I'll use my neighbor, for example. If she's going through something, my spirit will let me know, hey, this is what's going on with her. This is what she needs to be. This is what needs to be taken care of for her. This is what you need to talk to her about. This is how you need to guide her. And I have to go to her as a loving person and be like, hey, my love, this is what's going on. I know this is going on. You might not want to talk about it right now. We can talk about it when you want to talk about it, but I'm just letting you know I know. So come to me when you're ready. And sometimes she'll look at me out the side of the neck like, why are you bringing this up to me right now? I'm not ready to deal with this. Sometimes she's like, hey, yes, let's go nip this in the bud. But at the end of the day, like I was saying, it's about community. It's about looking out for those that are close to you, even those that aren't close to you. You have to take care of those around you. You have to establish a network of people that are willing to work together, that are willing to be able to share not only their fears, but their aspirations as well.
And as a spiritual worker as well yourself, it's it's hard when people label people as what we do or brand ourselves in a certain bracket and stuff like that. When I was doing the TV stuff originally first, I'd done too much too quick too soon. So taking a step back sometimes, and like yourself, you're reaching out to people and you know with your gut intuition that you know there's something that's underlining, but you can't say it specifically to someone because it's not the right time and the right place. But it's nice to see people reaching out and going, neighbour, when you want to come and have a cup of tea, I'm here. I do know what's going on. I've got a good sixth sense of what's highlighted around you. And then in the time, again, my path is I'm a helper, I'm a healer. And that's the same scenario. It doesn't matter which way we brand it and that. So sometimes as well, it's nice to see explaining that to people like you've just explained there to say, look, friends and family and everybody else, if you need to chat, we're here. And that's what we do spiritually.
Yep. I mean, we have to because, at the end of the day, without the people that are around us, we wouldn't be who we are. And that's what goes into a lot of what I do. It's, you not only do you have to deal with your own energy and your own spiritual team, but you have to deal with other people's energy and their own spiritual team. And sometimes, they're so in a fog from their day-to-day life that they don't know they're up from their down or they're left from their right. So it's my job to make sure that, hey, let's keep you on the right track. Let's make sure you're moving in the right way. Let's make sure you're doing things that benefit you, that uplift your spirit, that keep your guides happy. Because your guides are there for a reason. A lot of people don't like to listen to their guides, but I mean, you have to. You do. You just have to.
And I can safely say as well that your guides do step up to the plate when they have to, or your spiritual team. I've had certain situations where I get my guide saying your silverback gorilla's gone off, so something's going off in another room, and your team can get split up sometimes as well. Our lovely Jennifer's putting a new question on there, which we'll touch on in a second. Which my next question was going to virtually be that. It says the founder of Attention of Rootwork Tarot. Can you explain how do you get into that? Do you do the tarot cards yourself? Do you do readings?
Yes, I created my own deck. It's called Attention Rootwork Tarot. I created it based off of my spirit team, based off of spirits that I deal with, and based off of my ancestors. I do tarot readings. I do consultations. I don't really promote it a lot because I'm so used to working with people that are nearby. When I do end up promoting, I usually just go live. I'm just like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
here. I'm here for you. If you want to come in, come in. If you want me to do this different time for you, let me know. But most of the time, it's usually local. But I do lives, and I do my tarot reading lives, and I do have a lot of fun whenever I do them because I get to meet a lot of different people, and I get to meet a lot of different outlooks on life. And you know, I'm always whenever I do my readings, I always tell everybody, look, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me. Take this with a grain of salt because they'll tell me something and it'll just roll off my tongue, and the next thing you know, you might be mad, but you might need to hear it. So don't be mad at me.
And again, there's always that time and the place. Do you find that sometimes do you have to hold back from certain ways of expressing yourself of what your team's telling you to the way that you feel that you need to put certain messages over, or are you like very direct?
I try to be as direct as possible because as I've been on my journey, I've learned that sugarcoating does not help anybody. So if I get a message and I'm speaking bluntly, and one of my spirit guides tells me to tell them that they sitting on their ass and they need to get up and do what they need to do, then that's exactly what I'm going to tell you. Get up off your ass, do what you need to do, and you know what you need to do. So why are you sitting here asking me when you already know? Then they'll be sitting there like, well, yeah, you didn't have to say it like that, but I get it. But yeah, I try not to sugarcoat anything. I always try to be 100% authentic. Yes, I might be direct, but it also comes from a place of love because I wouldn't want anybody to lie to me or sugarcoat anything for me that I need to hear. So I wouldn't in turn do that to somebody.
Oh, that's fantastic as well. On the touching on, can you tell us a little bit more how you have you got any podcasts going and stuff like that?
Yes, I have my own personal podcast. It's called Attention Rootwork Podcast, where I speak on different aspects of spirituality. I speak on root working. I speak on hoodoo. I speak on current times. I just speak whatever comes to my mind. I try to sit down and formulate plans to talk about because a lot of the time people they want to hear things, but they don't know where to hear them from, or they want to get information about certain subjects but they don't know where to go for the information. Um, and that's what I try to do with my podcast. I'm also a co-host on another podcast called The Spiritual Tea. And what we do on that one, we're just very blunt and we just speak very honestly about different situations that's going on in the world, our viewpoints on certain things. But even though they might be our own personal viewpoints, we still try to remember to bring it back to a place of spirituality and a place of love. Because a lot of times people can take your own personal opinions and they can misconstrue them. And that's what we try our best not to do.
Yeah, when you're talking to people as well, it's like uh, trying to explain what your spirit guide's trying to explain to you. And again,
Mhm.
sometimes then people might not be open to receive, and it's like not forcing the issue sometimes. And that's where I was coming from earlier. Is sometimes it's like you can see a little bit of the future in a week or two's time, basically, and you've got to hold back and say, "Oh, they are coming back to me in 2 weeks' time anyway," because you'll get that off your guide sometimes. And I've found over the years it does get hard to bite the bullet on that
Yep.
situation. So, have you ever had situations where you've had to go keep quiet, not the right time?
There, there was only one situation that I had to do that in, and it was a client who was a good friend of mine, and she was going through some situations and some hardships. And one of my spirit guys was just like, "Look, just tell her straight up, just tell her, just rip the band-aid off and tell her." And I'm thinking to myself, no, because she's already in a delicate emotional place, and I can't do that. So it's one of those things where I had to maneuver carefully around the situation in order to get the point across that she needed to hear. However, once I told her that, she came back to me a few months later and was like, it clicked. It clicked in my head. And as soon as it happened, it clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jared was right. I can't wait to tell him. I see what he was talking about now. And I was just like, see, that's what I was trying to tell you the whole time. But I just couldn't, just couldn't slam it on the table and be like, look, this is what's going on. But yeah, sometimes it's hard. But again, it's just one of those things where I have to be careful whenever it comes to people's emotional states because everybody's emotional state fluctuates. So you never know. You might get a message today to give to somebody, but today might not be the good day to give them that message. You might have to wait the next day or next week to tell them what they need to hear or to tell them, hey, this is what I saw going on and this is how you should proceed. So it's just, you have to be careful.
As again, you touched on like the state of the mind that person's up to at the time, if they're delicate or they can't take a situation or they've just gone through a tough time as well. So you've got to really work out sometimes when I do some house clearances, the first thing you ask some people, have you been suffering with anything? And you've got to take on board the whole scenario of people, of what they're going through at the time when they're approaching you as well. So you do have to ask certain questions as well back to people that's contacting you.
This is true. And it also has to, like I was speaking on earlier, I deal with the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. Sometimes people don't realize that the reason why they're suffering or they're going through certain things emotionally or physically is because that they're not listening to their spiritual. Or, this is going on with them mentally because they're not listening to their physical or to their emotional. And sometimes it can be hard to guide them to be like, hey, okay, well, the reason why, your knees are flaring up, or the reason why your joints are aching, or the reason why, this is going on with you physically is because you don't want to conquer this emotionally, or you don't want to have to work through this mentally, and it's physically manifesting in you. And then when you tell them that, they're like, well, no, it's not. I'm like, okay, well, cool, I'll let you figure it out. And then a couple of weeks later, you know what, you were right. It's okay. You don't have to tell me I'm right. You don't have to tell me I'm wrong. I'm just letting you know. Next time, take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you something that's going to hurt you.
And it's nice as well when you tick the boxes and they're coming back in 2 weeks' time, and you give a thumbs up to your team as well. I was trying to explain to people as well when they're going through certain situations spiritually and where they're up to, is always say to yourself, give yourselves a nice little pat on the back as well when they've come through scenarios or spirits trying to connect with them with a message. It's like a great grandfather or somebody could just say, you're doing all right, but you're self-punishing yourself within the modern world. Sometimes I always say to people, your relative is just saying, come on, give yourselves a nice tap on the back, because we're sending healing and we're sending that love and everything else towards people. You're just trying to give them that upliftment as well. With any little specific message on spirit can mean the world to somebody as well. Have you ever had a moment where the littlest thing has meant the biggest thing to that person that's received?
Oh yeah, it's been a couple of times I've been out shopping, just minding my own business, and I'll look at somebody and I'll get this voice in my head. Just go tell them they're beautiful. Just go say they look good. And I walk up to a person, I'm like, I know you don't know me, I don't know you, but I just want to tell you, you look beautiful today, or I love the outfit you have on, or so on and so forth. And next thing you know, they're sitting there, they're telling you everything that's going on with them because they just needed that little bit of something to make them feel whole. And that's a wonderful feeling. And that's how I've ended up meeting a lot of people and interacting with a lot of people as well. Uh, I also like it when I'm at work and I get to talk to people because I love to people watch. I love watching people's emotions. I love watching their reactions and everything. So I'm so used to seeing certain people at work. I know as soon as something is wrong with them, I'm like, all right, come on, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Or okay, I know something's bugging you. What's going on? You want to talk about it, but you're not going to talk about it to these people. So you might as well talk about it to me. They're like, all right, well, this is going on, so on and so forth. And I love having that conversation and open line of communication because it's just I'll be honest, I'm greedy whenever it comes to that. I love making people feel good. I love seeing people be uplifted, and it's just one of those things. I love it.
Fantastic. Got another question coming in from David West, who's a member of the Keep team as well, does a fantastic job for us. Do you know any other root workers just like yourself?
Yes, in fact, I do. There are a couple of root workers that are here in the area that I am in. There are also a couple of root workers in the New Orleans area and the New Iberia area. Now, whenever you get closer to the swamplands, they don't call themselves root workers; they call themselves swampers. The reason why they call themselves swampers is because they get most of their herbs, their medicines, and the roots from the swamps, and they also get their animal medicines from the swamps. So whenever you come to Louisiana and you say, "Oh, I'm looking for a root worker," and you're in the swampy area, of course you're gonna be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a swamper," or "Hey, I'm looking for a medicine man or a medicine woman," and they'll usually point you in the right direction.
Okay, brilliant. Lovely Claire's asking, does a lizard animal spiritually mean anything in particular? Could you advise her on anything around? You see any like lizards? Because she must experience some seeing like some lizards spiritually.
Okay, whenever it comes to the lizard or the spirit of the lizard, is one of two things. It either represents a change that a person is about to go through, simply because lizards are always shedding, they're always growing, they're always moving. It could also, that's one thing. The other side of the coin is it could mean that there is a stillness that is to a person. There is trying to let you know it's time to move, it's time to get active, it's time to, okay, I'm gonna speak bluntly. It's time to get off your ass and do what you got to do. Okay, if you're constantly seeing these signs, then you have to take these signs and move with them. Because her whole thing is she keeps seeing things and she keeps getting these signs and keeps having, I don't even want to call them roadblocks, poster boards and billboards put in front of her, but she's constantly ignoring these billboards and these poster boards. So it's time for her to actually start focusing on them and seeing what their meaning is to them, or not even what their meaning is to them, how it affects her in her life. Because she can see something and it might not physically affect her, but somewhere down that line, it's meant for her for a reason.
And as you said, a lizard could shed its tail. It's like the rebirth of a new tail. It's the rebirth of you to take the next step again, and the new beginning and the new step forward as well. So Claire's actually said thank you for that as well. Moving up to Jessica, lovely Jess as well. Do you practice any like voodoo as well? Because I know you're quite down on the coast there, aren't you? Quite close to New Orleans. Is there any voodoo? Have you come across anything like that?
I do know people that practice voodoo. I myself, I study it. I don't actively practice it. There's reasonings behind it. It's okay. We're gonna speak honestly. Whenever it comes to voodoo and hoodoo, a lot of people get the two misconstrued. Okay, hoodoo has to deal with community and with the spirits around community, and physically healing people and all of these things. Hoodoo is not hoodoo. Voodoo is a religion. They're two different things. One is a religion, one is a belief system. Whenever you look into the hoodoo aspect, you have certain, you can call them saints, you can call them guides, you can call them whatever you want to call them, higher spirits. These spirits are venerated. We give our thanks to these spirits. We give thanks to our own spirits whenever it comes to voodoo, tongue tied. Whenever it comes to voodoo or voodoo, you have deities, you have the Ifa, you have the Orisha, you have different types of gods and goddesses in that pantheon. So while I might venerate certain voodoo pantheons, I do not practice voodoo. It's like, layman terms, I can be Christ-like without being Christian.
Yeah, and again, I find that the topic as well is like everybody's got their own beliefs in what they deal with and work with as well. So different states, different counties, and all that as well. Do you go off on in any investigations? Do you travel across? Do you go into other states with anything that you do with your work, or is it just your hobby?
I'm currently just stationed in Louisiana. I do want to eventually move about. I my future plans, I want to end up going to Florida. I would like to go back home to Texas, visit family in New Iberia. There's so much that I want to do, but right now, as everything is set up, I don't have the time to do it, nor do I have uh, the space to do it, if that makes sense.
Okay. What would you say draws you to Florida? I know you go home back to Texas to visit friends and family. Is there anything in specific that would draw you to Florida? Do you get drawn to where you want to go, the states or anything?
Is the main reason why I want to go to Florida is one, I love the people and I love the culture. I'm a big culture nerd. Like I love learning about different cultures. I love learning about different people and their beliefs and just everything. And to me, Florida is such a hodgepodge of different people and backgrounds and communities and belief systems and a whole bunch of awesome stuff. I just really want to go down there and immerse myself in it all and learn. Because my thing is, while I'm on my spiritual journey, there is no stopping point for me from learning. There's no end to learning. So no matter how old I get or where I get to go, I will constantly be learning something. So
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why I would really like to go down there. And plus,
Okay.
it's beautiful beaches and beautiful people.
I've got a very good friend of mine that I grew up with. He's actually got a gym in Florida, so I've not been out to see him. He's visited over here, but I've not been that way. So I would like to get over there one day and visit his gym that's quite close to the beach over there in Florida.
Okay.
Again, everyone's like David saying there, you're very busy all the time. How do you feel it ties in with your routine? Do you get over bombarded sometimes when you're just doing your normal 9 to 5 and that type of stuff, or do you work in a
Yes.
routine?
Yes, I do. I do end up feeling overwhelmed, simply because I'm in a headspace mentally and spiritually right now. Uh, I don't want to work for the man anymore. I don't want to go to a job anymore. I want to be able to sit back and create something that will last lifetimes after I am gone. And I'm trying to build that way at the end of the day, whenever my time comes, I can close my eyes and be happy and be like, hey, I left this behind for so on and so forth, blase, blase, blase. Hey, there are going to be people that were interested, like I was interested in traditional African American belief systems that can go here and can learn from this. And that's what my end goal is at the end of the day.
And Claire saying there that she likes the sound of Texas as well. Sounds very spiritual there as well. Could you just reiterate for Claire, because she's saying it is around the Texas, is that the root workers, which you've explained once before, and the swamp workers? Because you're in
Uh,
Louisiana, the swamp workers are a little bit lower down towards the coast.
mhm. The swampers would be ones that actually, okay, Louisiana, Texas. Texas is more of a drier state. Louisiana is more of a wet state. So of course you're gonna have a lot of you have marshlands in Texas, but you have a lot more marshlands in Louisiana. Swampers again got their name because they went out to the swamps. They got their herbs and medicines from the swamps. They are the same thing as root workers. It's just more of a direct name for what they do. A swamper will
So,
go out into the swamps and get their medicines. They'll sit out
yeah.
there. They'll commune with spirits in the swamp. Yeah. While a root worker will take the local plants and fauna and flora around them and communicate with the spirits around them in their area. So a root worker can basically move from place to place, just like a swamper can move from place to place. But once you're categorized or you're given the name as a swamper, that's something that you will always be known as because you are one of the few people that can go out not only to your local swamp but any other swamp in your area and be able to find what you need to find and harvest whatever you need to harvest.
Certainly, it does sound interesting down there, the way that you described it, the way people work with different routines and stuff like that, and different medicines as well. Do you have a go-to relaxing place for yourself? Do you find you need to meditate at certain times of the week? Do you have a routine in and around that, or do you just get in your zone like you are today where you are? It looks very tranquil there with the tapestry behind you and all that. That looks wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah. Most of the time, whenever I need to, let's say, pull away, I usually just put my headphones in because I'm in an urban area. So it's sometimes it's hard to get peace and quiet. However, I am close to woodsy areas too. So sometimes I'll just, leave my phone at home and go walking, or I just go to my room, put my headphones in and meditate. It's one of those things of I find my peace wherever I can make my peace. There's never one particular place that I have to go or one particular thing I have to do. If I need it, I will make it, if that makes sense.
And as you said, you've been doing this a lot realistically from around 2009. Is that like the podcast or the general spiritual side that you've really, really come out from yourself? Is it around 2009?
2009 was when I really started focusing on my spiritual gifts. That's also when I started to do personal research into my family history and into my family past to find out more of what they did, to find out more of who I am. That was also a really hard time for me because, again, I was 19. I'm out in the world alone. There's a lot of stuff that goes bump in the night and a lot of individuals that you don't want to meet and a lot of things that you don't want to do that I unfortunately had to learn the hard way how to deal with and go through, which I'm thankful for today because, again, if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be who I am. But it was one of those things of where I was trying to find answers, and everywhere I turned, there were no answers. But when I looked into history and into my past, I found all the answers that I was looking for. Trying to think what else. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, as you say, when you look into your past, you do any research of like your past, your grandfather or your great mother, and
yes,
they've all had the gift. Do you do any searching further than that? Do you do it, try and like do the census of around, bring in more detail of where it's all based from?
The furthest I got was I can't remember the war, but there was a war back in Texas for Galveston Island. Basically, Galveston Island was set up as a military depot. Well, everyone on my father's side, they were black cowboys. So they were working at this depot. So they eventually started to fight over this depot and to fight for the island of Galveston. And whenever they were doing that, it was I think it lasted for about a month and a half. Well, eventually, the army ended up withdrawing, and they gave the island to my father's people, and they established Galveston Island. That's my father's side of history. On my mother's side of history, I'm still searching and I'm still looking. I did end up finding that a lot of the things that I believe in now and that I practice now were passed down on my mother's side again through their matriarchs. So that's something that I'm still trying to pinpoint exactly where it started. But the furthest I've got, like I said earlier, was New Iberia, Louisiana. But my search does continue.
Do you find where working spiritually as well, if you go somewhere or you're traveling through a town or a state, do you get hit by certain energies and spirits, or like I've seen over the last few weeks, I've seen a new channel over there, I can't remember what it's called, like Smith Town or something like that, or Smith something channel, and they were talking about like the Civil War and stuff like that and how they've protected national parks over the last century and a half and stuff like that, and certain presidents have preserve these national parks and And basically because there was a lot from the Civil War that were like battlegrounds and battlefields was coming to the surface, so they had to be preserved. But I can imagine walking through somewhere like that, that historic battle's gone on type of thing. Do you get sensations of, do you see all that reoccurring or reenacting, or anywhere you go, does the things really show themselves to you in that way of what went on in the time?
I usually don't see, I usually feel. Sometimes they come as intense emotions. For the best example I can give is in the town that I live in, and well, actually at our town hall, they have a lynching tree, and that lynching tree has been there since 1910. So every time I would go by the courthouse downtown, I would get extremely mad and sad, and I would just feel this dread. And I've always wondered to myself, like, why do I constantly feel like this every time I pass by this spot? Why? So when I ended up doing research on it, I was like, oh, that's why, because y'all was lynching people right there at that tree. And yeah, so now that that tree is a historical monument, no, okay, this is the reason why I feel like this whenever I pass by this area, or where I get this sensation when I go by here. And
I mean,
I've
I
ended
mean,
up learning that. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's fine. You carry on. It's your hour. You carry
I
on.
was gonna say, I was gonna say, I ended up learning that sometimes the emotions that I end up feeling, uh, I have to differentiate which are mine and which are spirits, because if you can't differentiate, you're not gonna know what's going on. You might go to a random store one day, and all of a sudden you get extremely sad, but you've been having a wonderful day. It's not because you're sad; it's because there's a spirit around you that's sad, and they want you to know that they're sad. So now you have to figure out why they are sad in this area. Uh, so it's interesting. Sometimes I do see things. Most of the time I don't. Like I said, most of the time it's a sensation or it's an emotion that I feel.
And as a spiritual worker, I mean, even trying to explain, like, to a normal member of the public that just going through past a tree and you're getting the emotions, the mannerisms, and the experiences of what's gone on there in the past from 1910. It's like that you can communicate and connect with everybody that's gone on there and wish them loads of love and white light, and give them some
Mhm.
balance of harmony, that they've been acknowledged, and they get spiritually, they will get a warmth from that collectively, I feel. And then that helps
Oh
balance
yeah.
that energy out, I feel, as well. Have you had this sensation where, or a situation where you've had to deal with something massively positive and massively negative, or a situation that you didn't want to see, or you've seen into the future, or you've been seeing stuff from past coming back? What would you say your experiences of dealing with certain things that you've had to really work out, like the seeing the future, seeing the past, your positives, your negatives, and that type of scenario?
Okay. I can tell you about one scenario. I had a friend, or I have a friend. Um, his daughter was having really bad nightmares, and the room that his daughter would sleep in, she would have nightmares about this being creature thing, and it would only happen when she slept in there. Well, her parents decided to sleep in there one night, and they experienced the exact same nightmare that their daughter was having. And they eventually was like, Jared, what do I do? So on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. So me and my roommate, we cleaned the house. Uh, I made the daughter a little stick doll with twine. I prayed over it, I blessed it and everything. And I gave it to the daughter. And I was like, whenever the bad man comes and he wakes you up out your sleep, just grab it and shake it. Just shake the doll as hard as you can, hard, 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 hard. And she was like, okay. And so, she went to bed, and a couple of days later, her dad came back to me and he was like, I don't know what you did. I don't know what you and your roommate did, but she came to me in the middle of the night and she asked for the doll, and she took it to her room, and I could just hear her shaking it like it was nothing. And she went back to sleep, and she has not had nightmares since. And I had to explain, whenever certain things like that present themselves to a younger member of society, they feed on aspects of fear. They feed on things that make them manifest more in our reality. whenever you give the power to a person of youth like that, you're not giving them tools to fight or vanquish or to do all of this stuff. You're giving them tools to have faith and courage in themselves and to believe in themselves. And next thing you know, everything was fine in the house. And he was like, you know what? I never really thought about it like that. And I was like, yeah, of course there's a spiritual aspect that goes into it, but there's also a mental aspect that goes into it as well. On the note of seeing certain things, I really hate having deja vu. I hate it because whenever I have deja vu, it always happens. I'm just like, I gotta stop. I gotta change something. I have to roll my left pants leg up, or I have to roll my right pants leg up, or we have to change the conversation because I'm the type of person I don't like surprises. So whenever I have deja vu, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is about to happen. Okay, no, I have to change it. I have to do something different. But most of the time, everything moves very, very smoothly because me mentally, I'm set up as if I don't want it to happen, it's not going to happen. If I want it to happen, it will happen. So it's just one of those things of I try to maintain an aspect of mind over matter.
Jennifer's saying there that the whole lot, she's had a lot of goosebumps. Jennifer's obviously in Canada, and she put me onto you as well, and she's basically saying she's felt a lot of goosebumps. So what you're experiencing and what you're describing, your faith and what you've come across as well. So to me, she's open to receive there, and she's getting like that type of energy back, and more of a spiritual buzz is how I would feel with it. When you've explained what you've helped that little girl there, that is so uplifting for what we do. It builds that inner person's strength as well, and it gives them the positivity to step forward and live their life normally as well. What you've done for that little child, it is so rewarding to see a family settled and a situation settled as well. It's just, to me, that's why we do what we do, isn't it?
I mean, because like I tell anybody, I was placed here for a reason. I was put here for a reason. I have to, if somebody comes to me with the issue and I can fix it or I can help with it, I'm going to do it. If I cannot do it, I'm going to point you to someone who can, because we as a group of individuals have to realize that we live side by side our spiritual friends. A lot of people don't like to believe that. A lot of people think it's hogwash, but it's true. If you can believe that there are angels and demons and so on and so forth and blase, 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 then you also have to believe that there are certain spirits and certain deities and certain creatures, and the list goes on that live right beside us. And as like I said, as I continue through this journey, I just learn more and more and more, and I just love it. Love it.
As again, Claire's put on, she gets a lot of deja vu. Now, I felt over my path and my collective spiritual journey I was getting a lot of deja vu for the period of 15, 20 years. And again, it was like reliving where I'd walked past and seen places in its time and stuff like that. So Claire's never really thought of it as a spiritual journey, but I do feel it is the deja vu as well. What's your take on that?
My whole take on deja vu is it falls into the whole category of reincarnation. And the reason why I say that is we all know that there are multiple choices that we can make throughout life. Those choices lead to different outcomes, so on and so forth. My view on deja vu is it's basically like, hey, you've been here before, you've been through this before. This is just a friendly reminder that you were at this point in time. Are you sure you want to make the same choice you made the previous go round? And it's one of those things of whenever I tell people that, they're like, well, I've never made that choice before. Then I'm like, okay, well, then I have to sit down and explain, how time works spiritually for people, how we perceive time as physical beings, and how spirits perceive time as spiritual beings. Just because we feel like it moves in a linear path does not mean that's how it moves to spirits. So they might see something to come to us and be like, let me boop you on your nose. Say, don't make that choice. This might need to be what you need to do. or vice versa. This is what you need to do. Don't do this, so on and so forth, blah 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 blah. But it's just one of those things of me personally. I'm just like, what choice did I make, or what choice am I about to make? So that's the only reason why I don't personally care for it too much.
Also as well, do you find your team nudge you in the right direction? Where we say we've been here before, do you find your team nudging you in, like, you need to go and get that bus, or you need to? Do you find your team taking it off away from situations as well? That trust in the faith of where your team's pushing
you. My team has a very, very, very bad sense of humor. Okay, very bad.
Mine, I've got a few cheeky ones in mine as well.
I went through a situation, and I was like, I get it. I get the lesson. I understand the lesson point. But did I really have to go through all that heartache and tribulation and trauma? And did I have to go through all of this? They're just like, yeah, because you wouldn't have gotten the point any other way. So we had to send you through it. We had to let you go through it. I'm just like, hey, this is not cool. This is not what's supposed to happen.
Our lovely Dave has said a fantastic and interesting chat this evening as well. And Jess, I'll just try and get this comment on now. My laptop's playing up tonight, so just bear with me. Let's go to that next comment. Do you find yourself, are you very superstitious with anything? Do you have any superstitions?
I do have a few superstitions, and I understand the reasoning behind those superstitions. Uh, one of the main superstitions that I have is, whenever my feet get swept, I always spit on the broom. Well, the reason why people don't like their feet getting swept, and they say if you don't spit on the broom, you're going to jail, or you'll have bad luck, is because whenever back in the day, we're just gonna put it like that. Uh, what people would do is they would sweep up people's footprints. And whenever you would sweep up a person's footprints, you would have the ability to control them or to choose what direction they go in. So whenever you spit on the broom, you're not allowing them to take that power from you, or you're not allowing them to work their conjure on you or work their magic on you. I do also have another superstition to where whenever I go past a cemetery, I always hold my breath, simply out of a sign of respect for those that are laid to rest. Um, it's just little ones like that, but yeah. And of course, the not killing of the spiders is that's just bad luck altogether.
Yeah, the comments have stopped sharing for a minute, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. Over the years, I've done like where you touched on earlier on about the church and stuff like that. Do you do any when I walk back into a church and I do platform work and I give messages out to the congregation and stuff like that? I feel like I walk into the power, and when I open up spiritually, it's just like revitalized. And when you're within the church, the energy just surges through, and it's just so pure. It's just like, wow. Do you walk into any place as well as churches that you go, oh, the energies are just amazing around the place?
There are a few churches back at home, Texas, that I was really connected to when I was growing up, simply because they had been there for years, 80, 90 years. And, my grandparents had went to them, my great grandparents had went to them, my grandmothers had went to them. It's just, it's certain places like that. I haven't been able to go home in the last couple of years, and I really want to. And I really want to visit a lot of the places that I grew up at, especially a lot of the homes that uh, my elders, lived in and they raised families in, and that I basically grew up in, because there's so much history and so much love and so much positivity that was in those places that I end up craving them at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
miss that reconnection with the family and just being at my home, at my roots, at my base of who I am as an individual.
And obviously, where you touched on earlier on from, I mean, Jessica's saying thank you for the insights on the root workers and the hoodoo. She's really, it's another thing that we've learned about tonight, and and this is why we do what we do, because you're sharing your knowledge, and that's lovely, where we can learn as well, because we never stop learning. Have you got anything set up for the future that you'd like to learn, or have you got where do you go in, where what have you got for your goals or anything like that in the future?
Well, one of my main goals that I have, and it's something that I'm still working on. I want to open up my own metaphysical shop, and in this shop, I want to be able to not only teach about different herbs that can help you, that can help cure all different types of ailments that everyone has today, but they run so quick to go to the doctors and they try to have them diagnosed, when you can literally go into your own kitchen cabinet and find these same herbs that will help you versus taking something that will sit there and give you another symptom. Not only do I want to do that, but I also want to be able to, heal mentally and physically and emotionally in my shop, along with spiritually, and also teach, and also have it as a safe place for anyone to come into, regardless of your belief system, regardless of your religion, regardless of your background, regardless of anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. You'll be able to come in and sit down and talk with people that welcome you with open arms. And that is one of my biggest things that I want. That's not one of the biggest things that I want, which is one of my goals.
And that certainly sounds very interesting for you to do moving forwards as well. Claire's saying as well that she's obviously seeing flashbacks with things as she's opening up, as we've been talking through the night. She's saying that my silverback gorilla's playing up with the laptop as well, with the comments as well. She's also put a comment on that. Do you know of any church in Louisiana that does not quite look like a typical church there? It's more like a grey slate squared building in Louisiana. Do you know of anywhere like that? She's obviously, I think, seeing signs being given to her at the moment.
There are multiple churches. If I'm thinking of what she's thinking of basically the framework for a traditional Louisiana church. With those traditional Louisiana churches, being bluntly speaking, they were cheaply built because the community did not have the resources to build those churches. So they all basically have one set look. A lot of those churches, they have an older congregation, and in those older congregations, they usually, keyword is usually, some of them still do, some of them don't. They usually practice African American spirituality in those churches. Whenever it comes to the church and African Americans, a lot of the things that were done in church were okay. A lot of things that were done in those churches were influenced from hoodoo practices. So the ring shouts, prayer circles, prayer teams, baptisms, speaking in tongues. Those were all things that originated from Black spirituality or African American spirituality. And it was transferred into the church in order to have people have safe places to where that they could go. Now, as time went on, of course, a lot of people won't recognize it for what it is, but that's the basis of it. But again, that church that you might be seeing would be a traditional, old school Louisiana style church.
Excellent, well done, Claire. And I'm going to touch on, I know we're coming quite close to the end of the show now as well. It's my daughter visited America many years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, and she said, "Dad, I know what you do." She said, "When you get over to America," they said that like it's 50-50. People either love the spiritual side of it or they don't. From like north to south. How do you find the balances today? That was 5 years ago when she said that to me. How do you feel that this is? It like people either love it or hate it, or people are okay with it and don't bother with it? How do you find the general balances around the spirituality over there in America?
Over here, I'm gonna speak bluntly on this. Over here, as the younger generation gets older, they're starting to look for answers. As they turn to the church or they turn to what they were raised in and taught, and they can't find the answers that they're looking for, they begin to turn to spirituality. A lot of people that I've met that I did not think were spiritual are actually quite spiritual, and vice versa. People that I thought were spiritual weren't spiritual at all. So I would honestly say it's still 50-50. You never know. You never know. Sometimes you can tell by how people carry themselves, how they view the world, how they view people around them. Sometimes you just can't tell it all. But as of right now, I would say it is on the incline whenever it comes to the younger generation, just because they are in a mindset of I'm going to go look for the answers myself versus you sitting there telling me the answers.
And they're invincible as well. Also, we're coming to the end of the show now. Is there anything, would you like to let people know where they can get hold of you? Any websites or contact you, add you on Facebook, on social media, or anything like that?
I am on Facebook. My Facebook is Attention Rootwork. I am also on Instagram at Attention Rootwork. And I am also on, what is it? Clubhouse at Attention Rootwork. Most social media platforms as Attention Rootwork. But yeah, and you can the easiest way to get in contact with me is through Facebook.
Excellent, man. And do you want to tell us a bit more about that tapestry before you go? Because it just fascinates me. It's been flashing with the colours all night. It's had a colour change on it a few times throughout the interview.
With this tapestry, a friend had bought it for me as a random surprise gift, and they were like, "Hey, I think you would like this. I think this would be really cool in your office." And so I had put it up, and it's just been here ever since. And I love the vibe that it gives off. It makes me feel comfortable and loved and cared about. So
it gives me the balance.
Really Say that one more time.
It just gives me the balance right through the chakras. That's what I'm drawn to with it.
Oh yeah, from the top to bottom, it does have the chakras and what's it called? The mandalas of the chakras on it. But yeah, I do like it. I loved it as soon as I received it.
All right, and then I'm just going to say thank you for being an amazing guest. I look forward to catching up with you again in the future, and just keep up the good work and the spiritual side of it. I feel very vibrant just even talking to you. I feel like spiritual people, we share the same vibe and the upliftment of the positive energy that you bring to the table and around the warmth of people tuning in tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure sitting here talking with you.
All right. If you stay in the chat room, I'll just end the broadcast and we'll have a little catch up before we go. Right. Thanks for everybody tuning in. There is more shows coming up this week. Please keep on looking and checking out the Keep On Chatting platform as well. And tomorrow night at 9 o'clock is the All Talk Paranormal show. And again, I'm just going to say it's been a privilege tonight, and I take my hat off you for all the work as well. So I'll end the broadcast there. And thanks for tuning in, folks.